So here we go. We're back for another percussion discussion, and I'm thrilled to have one of the UK's top session drummers with us. We've got Andrew Small. Thanks for doing this, Andrew.
No problem. Good to be here.
It's a treat to have you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So with all the interviews, I guess the best place to start is right back at the beginning. Where did it all start for you, drum wise?
Playing in church. So yeah, family Christians. And that was what young kids aspire to do. You'd sit in church, you'd watch the older guys in the band doing their thing, and eventually you'd want to sort of jump into the drum chair. I mean, I play a bit of keyboards, I play a bit of guitar, a bit of bass.
Yeah.
So that whole tradition was most people that get involved in music in that environment. I'd say most people are multi sort of instrumentalists in terms of dabbling with different things. I'm not particularly accomplished on the other instruments, but yeah, I can play a few things.
You get by on them.
Yeah, well, just about. I want gig. I kind of play bass. I play bass in church still. I play a bit of keyboard from time to time. I don't tend to play drums really. There are loads of drummers, but it's I kind of dabble. I wouldn't do a professional gig on any of those instruments though.
Are you being modest?
No, I'm being very realistic.
So are you self-taught, or did you go for lessons as a youngster?
As I had lessons from, I think, sort of school from the age of about 10, 11. And was playing in the local authority where I lived in East London.
Yeah.
Was playing in sort of Saturday orchestras, wind bands, big bands, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then around 19, I started seeing Bob Armstrong, late Bob Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was with Bob for a very, very long time, over 20 years. I did an initial stint of about, I think, 5 or 6 years with him, and then sort of continued. If I wasn't touring, then we'd reconvene. And that went on to probably until about, I don't know, probably about sort of 2 years before he'd passed.
Bob's left an amazing legacy of players behind him.
Oh, absolutely.
It almost seems like everyone who studied with Bob has gone on to do great things. And I'm sure not everybody, but that's the way it seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, and I've always said that what was really, really amazing about him was that there was sort of a unifying similarity in some ways between all the folks that wanted to see him, but at the same time, everyone's very, very different stylistically, and approach and sound. So he wasn't just churning out identikit players, which was really, really cool.
But the core stuff, the core ideas were there, and then for you to take away and do what you want with them, I guess.
Yeah, it was important to do your own, become your own player, become your own thing. He wasn't trying to make people sound like him, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
But I think I wouldn't even say that I can see visual similarities with everybody that are immediately obvious.
Yeah,
there are some things, but essentially people are very different. People sound very different. It's really cool, very, very cool.
So, I mean, I guess drums has always been work for you since that's all you've ever done. You've never had to do a regular job, I guess.
No, I did a music degree, and I kind of said this before. My mum was very adamant that I get a proper job. So after my degree, I was a civil servant for 18 months. Went to work in a suit on the train for a while and found it, challenging. I never actually expected to do this full time.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't. I didn't think it was possible. I just did it because I love playing. But after 18 months, I really wanted to give it a go, and so I just gave it a go. Luckily, I was still living at home with my parents.
Yeah.
So that made it easier, but essentially, just sort of dived in, see what would happen.
Yeah. So what was the first pro gig for yourself then?
The first gig after actually sort of handing my notice and leaving was with this band called the Reggae Philharmonic Orchestra. And I think I'd been playing at a jam session in London somewhere. And the main guy, he saw me playing, and they had a trip to Hong Kong to do a one-off sort of corporate stroke charity gig, and that was it. That was the first. Yeah. That's the first thing I did. I think it was the only gig I did with them, actually. We were away for a couple of weeks, I think. Yeah. But that was the first thing. Yeah.
So then, do you think? I mean, obviously, everyone has a different story of how they made it as a musician. Did you jump straight into something else from that, or were you just a gigging drummer, just taking on, whatever comes along at that point?
Definitely just gigging. Yeah. I wanted to play with as many people who were far further down the road than I was at the time. And so I would do lots of jazz gigs.
Oh, really? You're a jazz player as well?
I wanted to be back then. And I still, it's kind of interesting because the players that I was really into, and that's still am, to be fair, a lot of them sort of were on that cusp of pseudo straight ahead to fusion, Weckl, Vinny, Erskine, Gad, Hakeem. Those are the players I was really into. Yeah. Dennis Chambers, definitely. And so I was sort of doing some straight ahead kind of stuff, but mainly it was in that sort of improvised fusion groove based thing. Yeah. And I think musicians are trying to develop themselves, technically sort of stretching the limits of the instrument. I think jazz always seems to be the arena that most of those players on all instruments kind of occupy.
Absolutely.
So I think that's where sort of my first sort of that's where I first wanted to be. Yeah.
I mean,
I still do, to be fair.
I've never had the dedication to do that, I'm afraid. Right. I've always been a little bit lazy when it comes to practicing. It's like, I'll just do what I do. It's fine. I know where I am. But I wish I'd given it some more time as a youngster. But never mind. That's all right. So where did we go from there then, Andrew? Where did you next end up, if you like?
I think it was another random sort of a random situation where just by chance, I think again I was playing somewhere, and someone, I think he was on Island Records at the time, I can't remember, but I got a gig with Courtney Pine.
All right.
Doing his, at the time that album was a reggae stroke jazz album. And it's interesting because the recorded version of the record from memory was definitely heavily slanted towards the traditional reggae thing. But the gigs were just a hybrid of absolutely everything. It was a real baptism of fire, actually. Courtney's absolutely amazing. He's absolutely incredible.
Because his music goes anywhere, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Style-wise, it's everything. It's not, you can't pigeonhole it, can you, at all?
Yeah, and that was what the gig was. The gig was that, and so you had to be on your toes. He's a phenomenal musician, and yes, I played with him. I think it was for about 18 months. I think, maybe a bit longer. Can't remember, but that was an amazing experience because it was getting me out of my comfort zone, really, because he really wanted, his whole thing was sort of nurturing players, really. And so his whole thing was sort of getting players to shine, trying to make people more confident, more assertive. and that's what I had to do. I kind of told, this story that there'd be a point in the show where there'd be a drum solo, and I was always more reserved at that stage, and he would just make everyone else just leave the stage. They'd leave the stage, and so you're playing everything. I played everything I knew. I'd play it again. I'd play it backwards. I'd play it forwards. I'd do a big finale, and then I'd look across in the wings, and Courtney'd be like, "No, carry on." And they'd turn to each other and just carry on with their conversation, which at first was terrifying, but it was brilliant because it just really just developed my confidence in terms of just not being a bit of a shrinking violet on stage, just feeling really comfortable in your own skin on stage, and that was a great experience, really, really good.
Yeah. Did you find yourself being a better player at the end of your time with Courtney?
Oh, big time.
Really?
Big time. I remember being at home, just because I was living at home with my mum and dad, and it's funny actually when the call came, I thought it was a wind up because my mum picks up the phone. I said, Andrew, there's a guy, Courtney Pine, Courtney Zine, Courtney. She was like, because she had no idea who he was, and I thought it was a wind up, and so I was talking to him on the phone, thinking, who's winding me up? So I remember when I left, when I got married, the night before I got married, I was packing my stuff up, and there were loads of sort of cassettes of gigs stacked up on the wall, and I sort of put them away, and I found a Courtney Pine cassette, and I put it in, had a listen, and I remember thinking, I can't even play half of that stuff now. I can't play any of it now because there were things that I just, you had, not that you had to, but just through the process of being in that environment. Just your facility, your ability to listen, your ability to go with anything you hear comfortably. I remember listening to it thinking, I cannot play any of that stuff now. So yeah, definitely, it was definitely a real learning curve, real development.
Yeah. I'm assuming that wasn't a reading gig, the Courtney Pine gig.
No. Only in as much as it's kind of weird in terms of what people define reading gigs to be, because I'm in situations where I might be given notation, which is fine.
Yeah.
Because having studied it, made it, I'm a pretty competent reader. But even on all of the pop things I've done, I make a point of writing stuff out anyway, because I just find it saves me time.
Yeah.
In terms of learning, it just makes it much easier to sit down and play the material through once and just write it down. Then I don't have to rely on my memory. So once I'm in rehearsals, I can refer to the charts for a while, and then gradually I can put them away.
Yeah.
It speeds up the process.
Absolutely,
so I'm always reading, regardless of the gig, regardless of what it is. I'm always reading because I will always write stuff down. I won't. It might take to learn a bunch of material for a show. If there's, I don't know, 12, 15, 20 tunes, the time it takes to actually commit that to memory versus the time it takes to write it down, it's just a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, sure.
It's just no-brainer. So writing it down, if I sit down for, I'll dedicate a day to write it all down, and then I can just have it on in the car.
Yeah.
Pottering around or put it up in my room and sit down and play. But I don't have to actually get my brain into sort of complete memory mode. I will listen to things a lot.
Yeah.
But I'll always write it down first. And that process helps me to remember as well.
Yeah. Man after my own heart. It's just, I find it's like a comfort blanket almost having it there.
I mean, it's, and some back, especially at the beginning, I was just trying to do as much playing as I could, trying to do as many different things as I could. So I might be juggling, a few jazz gigs there. There might be a little singer-songwriter thing going on over here. Not necessarily making lots of money, but just trying to be busy in order to just develop what you're doing.
Sure.
And and I always want to pay the artist the respect of making sure when I walk in the room, I know the material.
Yeah.
So whether that's a situation where I've had enough time to commit it to memory, or a situation, artists always seem to appreciate the fact that I have written something down.
Yeah.
Because I can sort of, because, oh no, after the middle eight, this happens, and people can tell that you've actually taken the time to prepare beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's what it is for me, really.
Absolutely.
It's sort of
that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think reading is, if we're meant to sort of be playing with other human beings and connecting on, that sort of creative level, I think being able to put the dots away is the ideal goal.
It's kind of a blessing and a curse kind of thing.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. I mean, you want to be inside the music. I think if you're totally inside the track and you really are expressing yourself in the best way you can, 9 times out of 10, at that point you'll put the dots away. So it's important to get to the point where the dots aren't. You're not chained to them.
Absolutely, fantastic. Well, and how much further along did the Kylie gig come along, Andrew? Was that much further after Courtney Pine?
Yeah. Courtney was early. Courtney was 93, I think.
Oh right, okay.
And Kylie wasn't until 99.
All right, so you've had quite a spell of playing in between the two then.
Yeah.
Again, was it in between that time? Was that because you're a real chameleon of a player, aren't you? I've been watching some stuff online, and you just seem to be comfortable with whatever's thrown at you. That's what I.
Well, I try my best. There were lots of different things, lots of like the jazz things, pop stuff, R&B, electronic stuff. Yeah, more jazz. Just I like it all. I like doing it all.
Yeah.
Electronic music, pads and sampling and
do a lot of that,
triggering.
Yeah.
I love doing all of that, as well as the acoustic kit stuff. So I basically just wanted to do as much as I possibly could, and the main goal for me was always to be trying to engineer situations where I was working with people that were far more experienced, far further down the road, and just by being in their orbit, I think is what helped me to develop. Totally. As I was kind of going along.
Totally. So obviously Kylie is a huge name, and you ended up MDing. Was that from the very beginning? From the very beginning, were you her MD, or did you start off as the drummer, if you like?
No. The first thing I did with her was a couple of live TVs that came via Fixer, came by an agent.
Yeah.
And I MD'd that. I MD'd these we did 2 live TVs, I think, about 3 weeks apart or a month apart. And after that, I think on the second one, her manager came to me and asked me, look, she's going to be going on tour. She really liked what I was doing. She really liked me. Would I like to sort of get the thing full time, do her thing full time? He asked me to sort of put a band together. He said he just wanted it to be a fresh start. So the whole agent fixer situation, they didn't want that anymore. They wanted to just
create
they wanted to sort of come with a situation where the band was sort of her band rather than other things. So that's how it came about.
That must have been because at the time she was massive. Really,
it was her comeback.
Yeah,
her big sort of comeback thing with spinning around and Love at First Sight.
It was massive. It was huge, wasn't it?
It was really, really cool. Very, very cool.
Must have been a dream. Perhaps not. I know it's a million miles away from the jazz side of things, but from great gigs And I've heard great things about her being a great person to work for.
She is the loveliest human being on the planet.
Really?
Absolutely. Everything you've heard about her being really nice, you can probably double it. She's absolutely amazing.
Really?
Absolutely amazing. Wonderful person. Wonderful.
So you were straight into, I guess, arenas and things at that point from, you know...
That first tour was actually theatres. I mean,
it?
still, actually some arenas.
Mm.
That first tour was a long one as well. It was a good old chunk of time. But it was like, you know, sort of like Hammersmith, Apollo's it was then. What is it now? Ventim Marine or something. I can't remember what it's called now.
Oh, Manchester Apollo would have been on that one as well, then, I guess.
Yeah, we did that. So it was that sort of size venue the first time round.
Yeah.
UK and Europe. We went to Australia. It was arenas in Australia.
Hometown gigs for...
Yeah, it was really good, really cool. And then the following album, that's when, you know, that first album she kind of blew up, and then it went sort of stratospheric. Then she was doing really big gigs everywhere.
That must have been a great gig for you. I mean, just you know,
that was great fun. Great band. I mean, I got people in who I knew and trusted. And the first tour especially, I had a lot of leeway in terms of the sort of approach to her song. So we were able to sort of make it a really nice, roasty play of a gig. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
It was nice. So Karen.
Yeah, no. A friend of mine, great musician, great guitarist, and he ended up on that tour watching at Manchester Apollo, and he said he mentioned your name as well. He made it his business to find out who the drummer was and the MD was.
Okay.
He was that impressed, and he said the band were absolutely on fire. Is how
it was really, really cool. It was very, very cool. Really cool.
You'd done Celebration and stuff like that as a cover as well, I guess.
I'm trying to remember. That might have been, you know, I think it was a later tour. You know,
was it?
Yeah, the first tour there was. It's a long time. I can't remember.
Either way, he said the band were just.
It was really good though. It was very, very cool. I mean, to be fair, all the way through, it was really, really cool.
Yeah. So,
nice
as MD for Kylie, are you doing the arrangements? Is that your job to do the arrangements with somebody else, or
some of them?
Yeah.
So there's like Steve Anderson, who still works. He'd been with her from the very beginning, from backing when she first started, I think, or very early on, if not the very beginning. So we kind of worked in tandem, and he's a real, less so now I think, but he's a real dance music sort of expert. So he was kind of responsible for a lot of those tracks, and then I'd have a chunk of the taking stuff from whatever the current album was and getting to rework it, and then it got the approach to what she was doing got a bit more conceptual as the tours kind of went on. You know, there was a lot more what's the word I'm looking for, interaction with the visuals and the screens and the dancers and the rest of it. So it just, the scale of it just got bigger and bigger. But essentially it was my job to come up with more of the acoustic based, real played stuff. Arrangements of that stuff, and some pseudo electronic stuff as well. And we kind of worked as a bit of a partnership. It was really cool, and I learned a lot from him. Actually, it was really, really good.
So obviously, I know you're heavily into the electronics. Was a lot of that stuff triggered live, or was there a lot of was there some click stuff going on? I assume.
Yeah, the whole gig was done to click.
Yeah.
And my job was to make all of that work. So I did all the programming. So I would, for example, take I'd get the multi-tracks of the albums at home, and then there were only 2 backing vocals on the gig, so I might take some BVs from the albums. I'd also re-record extra BVs.
Yeah.
So quite often, from memory, I actually ended up re-recording most of the BVs. To be fair.
Yeah.
And I'd add keyboards, change chords, sequences, chord, just change some harmony, change arrangements, and it was you're just coming up with a different, more energetic, more assertive, more aggressive version of the songs for the live stuff, but taking bits and bobs. If there were live strings on some bits, I might take the strings and use them, and then if I change the chords, I'd have to find some trickery to sort of get some sample strings to just change the harmony and then throw the real strings back in.
Huge amount of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but I'm kind of into that whole technology thing.
And it's unusual. I don't know of many drummers who MD. I know Gary Wallace does it, but
there are quite a few actually.
Is there really?
Quite a few.
Ah, right, okay.
Donovan Hepburn.
Does he?
MDs, yeah.
But obviously, you need a decent musical knowledge for other instruments.
Yeah,
you can't just.
Yeah,
you can't blag it, can you? There's no way.
Yeah, there are a number of people drummers at MD,
okay.
And the fact I play other instruments really helps, and sort of that the music degree helps as well.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah.
No, amazing. So how long did you have with Kylie? Was it 5-6 years or something? Was it longer?
2000, just end of 99, I think, to 2004 or 5, I think.
That's a good run, isn't it?
Well, it was cool. I mean, it was a bit of a golden period for me because it coincided with the time I was playing with Massive Attack as well.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
So I did 10 years with Massive Attack from 1998 to 2008.
Did you do Blue Lines then? Did you do that?
No, that was the Mezzanine record. Album.
Right, okay.
And Mezzanine, 100th Window, and there was one other, I can't remember after that. And so it coincided, so it was nice if there was a year where Massive Attack had a big long tour, Kylie wouldn't be, and then vice versa. So I kind of piggybacked.
Perfect.
There was a period of time that was really, really cool, where no one was really taking my schedule into consideration. but it seemed I would get a call, for example, asking if I was available for a period, and if things were looking a bit hairy, they might move something slightly.
Yeah.
To make sure I was available. But essentially, it was a really great time where I was doing 2 incredibly enjoyable, really, really brilliant gigs at the same time.
I can imagine Massive Attack would suit you, especially with the electronic side as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Really,
really cool. It's just your gig, I can imagine.
Yeah, no, it was very, 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 very cool.
Yeah. And what sort of venues? I mean, I've never seen Massive Attack live. I don't know. I've heard lots of recordings, but I've not been to a lot of gigs. I've always been working myself, Right. What kind of venues? Was it massive tours as well?
Yeah, the way the gig came about, I'd auditioned for it previously. I'd auditioned for it, I think, at the end of '97. It was myself and Pete Lewinson, and Pete got the gig.
Yeah,
fabulous drummer. And then they were in Brazil, I believe, South America. They just finished the theatre tour. The theatre, they did, I think, 8-9 months of theatres.
Yeah.
And they're really funny guys. So I think they must have had a really big dressing room, and they were messing around in the dressing room playing football. And Pete snapped his Achilles.
Oh.
It was the very last date of the Brazil leg, and I think they had about maybe 10 days, 2 weeks before the massive arena tour started. And I think he managed. It was before the gig as well, so it was his left leg. It was his left foot. So he just tightened up the hi-hat and just did it without, did the whole gig without his hi-hat.
Trooper.
And then I got a call to sort of come and have a play, and they were like, "Yeah, dive in." So I had to basically do that gig with practically no rehearsal. I think I did it with maybe one
And electronics wise, was there a lot of
Yeah.
triggering and stuff in that as well? Programming.
It was an unbelievable amount of triggering.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable.
So what kind of
So
setup would you have had at that point?
it was scary. I mean, I had a very similar setup to what Pete was using.
Mhm.
And I've been doing other, I've been doing other electronic gigs. So I had a theory. I was playing with Moloko before that as well.
Yeah.
I think. So it was a big old thing. There's probably like that first maybe four pads over here, maybe 2 over there, 2 or 3 additional pedals, bugs on snare, pugs on kick.
Yeah,
there was stuff going on and triggering lots of stuff. So I had to do the same notation thing.
Yeah, of course.
But it was just different because there were more things to hit.
Yeah, more like a map.
Basically, it was that. It was kind of that. So the only way I could have done it was, no one could have done it in that period of time without writing it down. There's no way you could remember all of that stuff. There's no way.
But amazingly fun stuff to play. It must be
brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And they were playing big, big old arenas, big old arenas. So that first gig was terrifying. Yeah. I don't get stage fright. I don't get nervous. I don't, playing isn't a big deal.
No.
But I remember that first gig being very apprehensive because I thought if I mess this up, matey boy in row 25 is going to think, oh, we only had one rehearsal. They're just thinking, drummer's rubbish, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all over the place. So it was very stressful from that perspective. I just thought,
I can imagine. So there was no actual acoustic drum sounds in that, or were there blends of?
No. It's acoustic and electronic stuff at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. But just moving on a little bit from that, do you find now the electronic stuff is getting easier and easier to access and to use?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I posted something a few months back, a picture of what my sort of electronics rack used to be. And it was just like a wardrobe of gear and just loads of stuff. And now I can get it into a unit this size.
Really
cool. Yeah.
No, it's something I've never really got too much into, but it seems a bit more accessible for everybody these days. Cost wise as well.
I think it can still be quite expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking for the basic.
For the basic stuff, yes.
Yeah.
If you want something that's usable in a sort of pro environment, it's still not cheap, I'd say.
Yeah, of course.
Multiple outputs and, but everything's got sampling memory and the rest of it. But it's mainly the units that have got the outputs that, an engineer is going to want separate samples coming out in separate holes.
Yeah.
So that side of it can still be a bit pricey.
Of course.
But my approach to electronics is always, I'm not really interested in triggering acoustic sounds. If I'm triggering something, it has to be something weird, something that can't be achieved.
It seems to defeat the object, though, if you're triggering an acoustic sound that you could just create normally. Does that
I think for engineers in big venues, having a sample makes their job easier. It's
treated straight away, I guess, rather than, and
it can cut through, so quite often, I mean, I don't really tend to do that, but I know of guys that have got a bug on their kick, and you've got the acoustic kick sound with a mic, and then you've got the sample playing at the same time.
So it's just two channels blended. Yeah,
exactly. So the engineer can blend a really punchy, really direct, get a brilliant sound in a big space. That's where it kind of comes in. I think in smaller, it's harder to make that stuff work in smaller venues because you have to get over the sound of the acoustic kit in the room with you as well. It can be trickier when you haven't got an expense to
And I
work
think
with.
to have to be a busy drummer at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, to be a
It's a
miracle
miracle
worker at the moment.
yeah.
But generally, outside of these weird times, I think you need to have knowledge, at least, and ability with programming and with the electronic side. I think it's expected.
Yeah, it helps.
Expected,
It helps,
days, isn't it?
big time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of artists want some they want to hear sounds from their recordings quite often.
Yeah.
So being able to do that makes the artist happy.
Yeah.
And even like some of the functions and corporate things I do, if you're playing, pop stuff that people know, and they might want a hand clap or a electronic snare sound or a dance kick sound, it just helps, just makes it a bit more authentic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
it's important, isn't it? It's important.
Yeah.
Giving the client what they need. And
yeah,
then,
definitely.
I mean, I'm looking at the list of stuff you've done. You've done again, like Swing Out Sister. There's another name.
Yeah, amazing gig. Oh, that's a brilliant gig. Brilliant.
Great band.
Oh,
Some great songs.
Yeah. I kind of said to them I was at school when Breakout was was a hit.
Great song.
And getting to play that.
Great groove to it.
I remember when I did the audition. I remember leaving after audition, just thinking, I've got to play Breakout, so that's fine. I've got to play Breakout with Corinne singing it.
Yeah.
That's enough for me.
Yeah.
If I don't get the gig, it's fine. Because that was like a very sort of pivotal part of growing up, that tune.
Yeah,
so
great song. Yeah. Great song.
But that gig wasn't just a pop gig. That was a proper roast of a gig. That Andy Connell he's a real music connoisseur, real lover of all things, and so there was loads of references to, weird. 1 minute you're playing a pop song, next minute you've got a weather report lick in there or something. It was very, okay. it was really intense, very intense.
Yeah.
No, that's really good fun. That gig, really good fun.
Sounds it. Yeah. And then total extreme. I think you probably realise what I'm going to say. Il Divo. The ultimate classical crossover. You call them a band group? I don't know what you.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, it's not my kind of music. It's not my kind of music at all. But I really got a lot out of doing that gig. Mainly because it was working with as MD as well.
Yeah.
So it was working.
Let me asking how you got the gig, Andrew.
That was a recommendation. Again, I think it was a recommendation. The label, which label were they on? They're on Simon Cowell's label. They're on Sony, and I think when I met with their manager, when I got the call, I met with their manager. I think he said, there was a sound guy that I worked with who was their front of house engineer at the time.
Yeah.
He might have mentioned me. Because he'd done Kylie as well.
Yeah.
But when I met with with their manager, he said that there was someone from a record label, who I'd worked with MDing other stuff, and she gave a very glowing recommendation. So he basically said that he'd sort of thrown my name around to a few people that he knew, and the responses were positive. So that's why I thought he'd sort of get me into a meeting and see if it could work. So that's how that came about.
Yeah.
And it was very random. And I've been doing Massive Attack for 10 years at that time, and it just felt like it'd been a long time. And I thought I'll try something different. But the best thing about that gig was it kind of really got me back into the orchestral mindset after studying after all that time. So it really got that side of my brain working again, working with orchestras that I'd have to, you know, they would have some additional support on stage in terms of some orchestral playback stuff.
Yeah. So what size band, what size orchestra would you have that would tour?
They'd, one year it was like just 16 strings and a couple of horns.
Yeah.
And then another year it was like nearly 40.
Oh, right. Okay.
Was it? But it was 40 or not 30. But it was they'd pick up an orchestra in every, like they'd talk. I'd never worked with a band that worked as hard as those guys.
I'm sure.
I never ever did as many gigs with anybody. I mean, like we'd be in America for like 3 months straight. Like,
really?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Never done as many gigs.
They must have had bulletproof voices to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean they'd pick up an orchestra in every town.
Yeah.
Or in most towns. So if you're in the New York area or the LA area, you might have the same orchestra for 2 or 3 nights. But other than that, it's a different orchestra every day. So
you're rehearsing, and more than sound checking, it would have been a rehearsal, I guess. With what you...
Yeah, so it's a 3-hour rehearsal with an orchestra every day. Whoa. But there was, like I said, there was technical assistance to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But you had to rehearse an orchestra every day.
And I'm sure technically it must have been a nightmare with monitoring as well, especially having the playback stuff as well. Yeah, well,
you can, if you're on ears, you can.
Yeah, I guess
you can get rid of what you don't.
Yeah.
Need. So it's but it was good having to work again. The Il Divo gig was brilliant as well because I was given a great deal of responsibility to make things happen. So having to deal with orchestra fixers and orchestras and then go and record, I had to go to, recording playback stuff. So if they wanted a new arrangement of something, I'd have to liaise with an orchestrator who was doing the arrangements at the time and sort of go and produce sessions where you record in an orchestra to get some extra bits for segues and things, and it was really, really cool. So getting my brain back into the orchestral side of stuff was absolutely amazing because I kind of went on afterwards to start working on my own material, and that was working with them just informed my approach. So I started writing lots of string arrangements and stuff for my own material. And I'm not sure that would have happened if I hadn't done that gig.
Yeah. So you earned your money on that gig, then, no question.
Yeah. It was a lot of responsibility. It was a lot of work. But it was a great. It was a great. Like I said, it's not my kind of music at all. But it was a really cool situation. It just meant that lots of the other side of my brain was working really, really hard. Yeah. I'm always trying to look for ways to learn new stuff and to develop and to just to move forward.
Yeah.
Musically, and it just made that possible.
Definitely not just a drummer.
No. I mean, yeah. Like I said, I write a lot. I program. I arrange. I do stuff.
Sure.
So it's really cool. It's really good.
So obviously, this last 8 months has been really weird. Have you managed to keep busy doing things? Obviously, gigs pretty much a no at the moment. Have you managed to keep going?
No, I mean, like most people, it's been very, very difficult. I feel very fortunate in as much as I have access to everything I need. I've got the studio here, so I can play drums when I want. I can record stuff if I want.
Yeah.
So I've been very productive, to be fair.
Yeah.
I've got a new album. It's been finished. It's been finished for a while, actually. It should have been out this time last year. But I finally got it finished sort of at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And I was sort of working through the process of trying to get it mixed. I had to go and mix it myself, which I wasn't really happy with that. So I've been working on the album. I did I did some. I'm quite into video as well, some creative video content and stuff. So during lockdown, I managed to get hold of a really cool space and did a day's filming my band, new material from the new record. So I've got to mix that and edit that video as well. So, and what else have I been doing? Just a couple of remote sessions. Still teaching here, so getting the tech up to work over Zoom. Some sort of teaching over online. So I find it very hard not to stay busy.
That's a good way to do it.
Even if it's not, even if there's not lots of money coming in. I make a point of, I can't just sit down in front of the TV all day. It's impossible. I just can't do it.
I don't think it does anybody any good doing that. In my own small way, I try and do. I'm like trying to learn new things constantly, you know. And this is partly how these interviews have come about.
Yeah, exactly. And I've just started. Like I said to you before, I've just started a weekly live stream.
Yeah, sure.
Doing, which is a bit. I like to be quite prepared and quite particular about things.
Yeah.
So I pre-record some interviews, interviewing folks, mates that would normally be here. I kind of said on the stream yesterday, I did my first one yesterday, that this is places I normally have people in. Every couple of days, something's happening. I'm recording strings, or I'm recording a horn section, or got my band in rehearsing, or I'm recording vocals. I'm always doing stuff. Sure. Producing stuff for other people, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And we're locked down. It's not big enough for me to be able to do that safely.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So it just means that the whole point of the stream was just to chat to folks that would normally be here. Yeah,
absolutely. You did one with Ant Law. Did I see that?
I did a chat with Ant for his live stream.
Right. Okay. He's an amazing player, isn't he?
He's unbelievable. Absolutely.
His drummer's not bad either, I have to say. Rich, he's a great.
Yeah. When I watch Rich's videos, and I just scratch my head and just think.
Well, I did an interview with Rich. Rich, I really like Rich, and he's man with 5 brains.
Exactly. Yeah, very, very, very clever, very, very talented, really good.
Absolutely. No, well, look, Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you doing this.
No worries.
It's been a fascinating, I don't know, nearly an hour.
Cool.
I'm sure.
Hopefully it's not just random rambling.
I like to think people enjoy these. We meander a little bit, and
right.
So thanks very much for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
No problem.
And
pleasure.
Long may you keep busy. Thanks very much.
Well, yeah, try my best.
Yeah, keep safe, mate.
Great stuff. Take care.
Thank you very much.